So, Java students, thanks a lot for tuning in, and I want to talk about the final steps on Project 2. And and if I can go back to GitHub real quick and get the problem statement loaded up here. We've kind of solved a lot of these problems, and it bears more discussion. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here. This is roughly all of phase 2, where there are these 6 bullets, and we're roughly through the holdings for sale, where we're creating kind of a for sale market. And the for sale market takes place once a person owns a holding or has made a transaction, and then they're ready to sell that transaction because the transaction is worth more than when they first bought it. So what they do is they make a portfolio. Then by the time they've created the portfolio, they look back at the market and say, well, have any of these stocks gone up in value? Has the price of this stock gone up since I've acquired it? Now, in truth, people can hold on to a stock for a long time. Can we close that door? Yeah, thanks. A person could hold on to a stock for a great long time, but inside of our simulation, a person's going to only hold on to a stock for a little while. So they're going to build up their portfolio. Then the moment that they build their portfolio, they're actually going to sell it. And that's largely because the moment that a person buys something, the price goes up anyway. So for the vast majority of stocks, that selling is going to be possible. So that creates the holdings for sale marketplace. And then what we're also interested in, we're going to talk about this in a separate talk, but once the stock sells out of its IPO, i.e. the initial public offering is finished and the IPO quantity is 0, if a buyer wishes to buy it, he or she must buy that stock from the for sale market, using the holdings for sale. So let's kind of wander back in here. The current working code works a little bit like this. You start with the market, and this is new code, which we're going to ignore for just a little bit. But you start with the market, and then you say, okay, buyer, build a random portfolio. Now, in the prior versions of this code, the buyer would just build his or her random portfolio. Now, this time, we're actually going to take the market, and they're going to build the random portfolio based upon the current status of the market. So you guys know, as programmers go, we're kind of sending the market, all the value, all the information into the market quickly into the buyer's portfolio building process. And we can kind of go in there. So build random portfolio is going to take the market, and then it's going to grab a stock that's within that market. And this is a new piece of code, so we're going to go over that. But what it's going to do is it's going to grab, a transaction based upon the random stock that you had created. And you're going to get a stock out of that market, using a random value. And that's fine. You guys are already, doing that quite successful. And we're going to build a transaction based upon the price, the symbol, etc. of that stock that we located. We're going to add it to our portfolio, and then we're going to update the price history within that given stock. Now, what's interesting is the next move that we're going to do is we're going to sell off the winners. So once the portfolio is built, we've roughly iterated the market for the number of transactions that we plan to make. We're going to go ahead and sell off the winners. So you're going to take the market. Now, what's interesting is the market by this time has actually changed a little bit. So based upon, and this is some new code that I'm going to have you ignore just for now, but while you've been adding this stuff to your portfolio, the prices of things have changed. And the prices may have changed, 25 different times total. A person may be making up to 25 transactions. So we're going to take that market and we're going to sell it off. So we're going to send the current copy of the market. Now, what's interesting here, and let me go back to main, is that you're going to send the buyer class a copy of the market, but you're not actually adjusting the market. So here I am inside of a buyer. Sorry. Here you are inside of buyer, you're just getting a copy of the market. You're not really changing the original market just yet. You're just kind of adjusting your copy of the market. And you're allowed to, flexibly alter that market, according to, choices you make. Then if you sell off the winners based upon the values in your copy of the market, you're going to go ahead and you're going to say for all the transactions in your portfolio and all this, go ahead and search the market. And if the symbol in your transaction equals the symbol within this market, so search the market. If the price in your transaction is less than the price in the market, then go ahead and add your transaction to the for sale market. And that's an important move that will create the for sale market for the first time. And that obeys a couple of rules that we've established, which is that, if you're in a position of making some money, then go ahead and put your stuff up for sale. And put stuff up for sale by adding your transaction to the for sale market. We look into market. The for sale market is really just an array list of transactions. And that's all it is. And we don't work with the for sale market within the market class, but we just make it public just so you can add stuff to it. And when we add stuff to it, that means that stuff is technically up for sale. Now, what I've done is I have commented out these lines here just for now because they're kind of working, and once it starts to work, you can avoid the system out print line. Now, the interesting thing here is we're actually adding stuff to the market. So the for sale market increases a little bit every time we run sell off winners. And because that market has changed a little bit, we're going to return that market back to the calling function. Sorry for all the scrolling, but back here in build random portfolio. Ultimately, build random portfolio is going to return the market, and it created a new market object for the purpose of the return. And so after you build your random portfolio, the market changes a little bit. And so it returns a market back to the main. Now, that's a heck of a round trip. That's a pretty robust round trip. It's a pretty loopy little activity. Really, all that's happening here is we're just using the basics behind functions, and we're just using objects to store data, and we're using just the different attributes of objects to make something interesting happen. And so it's a bit of a show-off. Another thing we're doing is we're using try-catch. So we're saying, okay, try this. And so actually Java is going to wait for the build random portfolio function to complete before it's going to move forward. And then what I did inside of my demo is I commented this later, but I'm going to uncomment it right now, where I could sort of print out the current for sale market. And so what happens is we're going to prove that we have stuff for sale. We're gonna output it, etc. And we cover that within the last talk, and we can go over that in the next video if we need to go over it again. But most likely that's going to be already ready for you because you have that for sale market that's printing out right there. But let me say this: the reason why I bracket this in try-catch is because try-catch causes Java to execute this code within its main thread, so that nothing else will take place until this is finished. And so what it says is, hi, go ahead and make your market first, and then we'll go ahead and prove that the for sale market exists afterward. And then we're going to wrap through that, for however many buyers you want to create. Now, if I didn't use this try-catch, what it would do is it would execute this, and before it was finished, it would go ahead and run this code. And that may be a reason why some of you are getting some empty for sale markets or maybe some null pointers, is because we want to finish with build random portfolio before we try to traverse the for sale market. So that's just going to be a quick recap video on what we did last time. And I'm going to make a separate video in a moment that will help you take the next step forward.